Many of you know and have worked with our first two presenters. Today they are appearing as ambassadors from the Urban Land Institute's Entertainment Development Council. Jill Bensley in the red, president of JB Research Company, a consulting organization that provides all types of research, feasibility, and testing services for the entertainment, retail, attraction, theme park, live theater, public assembly, and gaming and museum organizations. She currently is serving as chair, which is extremely prestigious, of the ULI's Entertainment Development Council. Jill was an early adopter, trend watcher, and a protege of Buzz Price, and she carries his voice in her head on every job. She jokes that it does get a little crowded in her head. And the ever-shimmering Normalynn Cutler is the principal of Cutler Enterprises, a full-blown service branding and big idea firm. She's currently also the vice chair of the ULI's Entertainment Development Council. These two giants of our industry are the first to identify meaningful trends and then go on to let us know what they have found out and teach us how to create meaningful bottom-line business opportunities. Today, they will be presenting the results of some new research about a huge emerging market segment worth in excess of $1.5 trillion in income a year. Welcome to the baby boomer grandparent-grandchild market. You are likely part of it, ladies.
Well, good morning, and thank you everyone for coming, and thank you TEA for letting us come and present our results. This actually is a study that hasn't even been published yet, so you are one of the first people to hear it. We have long known that the baby boomers have changed everything as they have passed through their life cycles, and we have wondered for the last couple of years, what are they going to do as they age? And we all realize that we are aging. Baby boomers now are between the ages of 49 and 67. So I wanted to ask first, who in the audience is a baby boomer? If we can just see a show of hands.
Okay. Boy, you guys are old.
Or young.
Or young. You're forever young. So.
Forever young. Okay. And you did recognize that. That is our theme song, is Forever Young. So, you know, you hear so much about the baby boom market and how dire our circumstances are and how there's not enough health care for us and not enough housing for us and how we don't have enough money to live out our lives. And we were a little sick of hearing that because we know that there is a huge market out there that wants to be entertained, that wants to go to theme parks, that wants to go to movies. But funny thing, this market has never been quantified. Never, and it's never been qualified. So we decided that we would try to get funding for a study to figure that out. And last year, we talked the Urban Land Institute into giving us a grant to study the market. Today, we're going to be presenting the results in 3 parts. So our first part, we're going to show you a little video to try and remind us of where we come from. Then the second part, we're going to present the results of the study. And then the third part, which I think is going to be the most fun, is we're going to talk about some products and services that we have come up with based on the research. Now, absolutely key, we want this to be interactive. We're going to ask for your input, and if we don't get it, we're calling on you, okay? So this is going to be a fun kind of exercise, and we want to get the juices flowing for things that we can do to make our products and our entertainment match this market. So with that.
Well, it should be no shock that I am a boomer. And the reason you didn't see me dancing to Forever Young is I'm the disco queen. And just so that this outfit is complete, I picked this little ditty up in the hotel store. But as a boomer and a grandparent, I put together this little crazy film of moments that, if you're a boomer, it should bring happy, nostalgic thoughts. It could terrorize you, but hopefully they're happy. And if you're not a boomer, it will give you an insight into what is part of or what has created our zeitgeist, our collective consciousness. So roll that beautiful bean footage.
This may be hard for you to believe, but life isn't exactly like television.
Happy birthday, baby. Oh, I love you so. 16 candles. Right on.
Okay, man.
That'll be $38, please, Mr. Thayer.
Yeah. You know how much gasoline costs now at your age? 12 cents a gallon.
Is that a fact? I didn't even know they had gas back then.
What are you, a couple of nitwits? Think it's funny being old? My whole goddamn body's falling apart. Sometimes I can't even go to the bathroom when I want to. But I'm still a man, let me tell you, and I can take on both you punks.
Are you getting any?
Dad!
You can tell me, Dwayne. Are you getting any?
Come on, please.
No? Jesus. You're what, 15? My God, man.
Dad.
You should be getting that young
Dad.
stuff. The young stuff's
Hey.
the best stuff in the whole
Hey,
world.
Dad, that's enough. Stop
Will
it.
you kindly not interrupt me, Richard?
Mama, Daddy, don't go! Don't go! Would you? I'm trying to let don't go! Don't go!
Just let go. Just let go. So strong.
And thus is our dilemma and our opportunity.
So, this is our, as I said, one of our first presentations of the results of our study of baby boomers, grandparents, and Generation Z, which is, we'll talk about who they are in a minute, but that's generally who the grandkids are. Again, this was a study that was funded by the Urban Land Institute, and we did it in concert with the UCLA Anderson School of Business. 3 things we're going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about who they are, how many we have, baby boomer grandparents, and how much money they have. Very important. What they do, the kinds of activities that they like to do with their grandkids. And we have some very good news for people in the audience. And then some suggestions for new products. So we're going to blow through these. And again, we want your input because we know you've been thinking about it. We absolutely know you've been thinking about it. Normalynn? Oops, thank you.
So we were working on what would come up as a line that could really embrace the alpha and omega of boomer grandparents. The clothesline. How many of you remember when clothes were hung on clotheslines? Oh, come on, don't be... See, you were happy to say you were a boomer. You were... Okay. Well, I certainly did. And, okay, how about ringers on a washing machine? Where you went like this? I'm seeing some heads nodding ever so shyly. Okay, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed for you. And how many of you saw your dad's shirts rolled up, wet in the refrigerator with starch? Oh, I'm in love with you. Thank you. One honest man in the audience. All right. Well, one other thing that you need to know and why the zip line. Unlike your grandparents, your parents, this particular generation is adventurous. We're not going down easy, let me tell you. We want to go kicking, screaming, and having fun. Do we not? Can we hear? You know, you talk to Roberta nice and loud. Let's hear it. Are you going to go down kicking and screaming?
Oh, yeah.
All right, take it away, Jill.
Okay, so we're going to give you some of the facts. And again, this is the first time that this market has been quantified without any in an objective manner. So last time the census was done, it was done in 2010. There were approximately 77 million baby boomers. Everybody knows that number, 80 million-ish baby boomers. Grandparents, there were about 35 million, so it's like 45%. Projecting out into the future, this is sort of the hard part, and the numbers keep getting revised. So we went out to 2030. Baby boomers, okay, oldest baby boomer in 2030 is going to be 87. Okay, we're going to start dying. So the numbers are going down. There are going to be 60 million baby boomers in 20 years, but the grandparent numbers are going up. So that we're projecting that 78% of baby boomers in 2030 are going to be grandparents. That makes a lot of sense to know who they are, what they want, and how much money they have. It's going to be, and should be now, a coveted market. The facts. Boomer grandparents are well off and educated. This isn't what we hear. These are not the facts that we hear. So they earn about $1.6 trillion in total income every year, and that's about 15% of all the income that's earned in the U.S. They spend about $1.1 trillion total. 31% of them have advanced education or bachelor's or more, and that compares to about 27.5% in the population as a whole. And their median household income of the lowest cohort is about $63,000 or $64,000. Now that doesn't sound like much to us, and I don't mean to sound whatever. But the median household income in the U.S. is $53,000. So it's better than the average bear.
Of course, that includes their Social Security payments. Just kidding, which are
No.
non-existent.
No. So how much do they spend? Again, this is the first time this has been quantified, and we did it for this study. So in entertainment, they spend about $58 billion. In restaurants, they spend $59 billion. On vacations, they spend $37 billion. And you can see what the numbers are. The pets, toys, and hobbies are a subsection of entertainment, and fees and admissions are a subsection of entertainment. If you people in this cohort, in this generation, spend an enormous amount of time on their pets and an enormous amount of money. And if you have a pet, you know that it may be substituting for your children at this point. Mine certainly are. Okay, we know that everybody in this audience knows about the foreign markets. Our study was domestic, but we just wanted to throw this up to let you know that there are a lot of older people, this is over 65, in other countries. So this is not just happening in the US. So this is India and China, and their population over 65 projected out to 2050. And again, there's too much information to really see this, and this is going to be available to you. And these are the world's largest older population in 2008, and these again are over 65, but China's the largest.
Are you surprised that we're third?
We're third.
What happened to the world power? Well, when it comes to grandparent power, we're kind of slipping. We didn't make as many babies as we should have during the 40s and 50s.
So anyway, this is just to let you know that in other countries this is also happening. So we did two studies. One, we looked at existing data, the census, and there's data from AARP and from MetLife. And then the second study was original research, and we did a survey of 500 baby boomer grandparents. So this is the results of the first study, and we gave you some of the results, and we quantified and qualified the markets. And this one I just threw in, but it's something that you probably already know. It's called the age wave, and if you look at the people between 55 and 60 and 64. This is the percentage change in the last two censuses. So they've changed increased between 46 and 56%. That age, that wave is going to keep going down over, except for the people that die. So that's what's causing the huge amount of numbers that are getting older in the U.S. And it's extremely important to quantify, how many people we're going to have that are in the older age cohorts in the future. This again is just breaking out advanced degrees. Also very important because we all know that the number one predictor of going to any kind of entertainment or recreation event is, well, the two things are income and education. And we are relatively educated, and as you can see, the highest educated in 2011 were the people 60 to 64. Now look at the generation before us, the older generation. They didn't have the parents and the push on education that we did as boomers, and it's showing here. Boomers have more money because they're working longer now. We know that.
And we have a question for you. For those of you who raised your hand who are boomers, if you had all the money you needed to retire, to live the way you want to live, would you continue working? Because we want to hear from you. Makes it more interesting. So it's not a money driver.
What did you say, David?
What did you say, you naughty boy?
It does.
Keeps you out of the bars, unless you're building bars, in which case you're in the bars. But we are finding that for most people, some people that are continuing to work because they want to enhance their retirement funds, they don't want to draw upon them. But more people want to stay relevant. They want to be involved, and it makes them more interesting. So this trend is not going to change. People are going to continue working longer because they like it.
So this is one of those charts that's got too much information on it, but again, it will be available, and it shows this is men in the labor force, and on the left side it's 1963, and then we go out to 2011, and we see what percent are in the labor force, and actually for men it's gone down, not a whole lot by age cohort. But what's really interesting, this is female, in every age range, it's gone up for women. Important because, does anybody in the audience know what percent of women, what percent of goods and services in the U.S. women are responsible for buying? Huge. 85%. 85%. That's what they buy. And the reason isn't because we're silly ladies running around buying shoes. We do that, and, as you can see. But we're responsible for buying for our kids, for our grandparents, a lot of them are our kids' grandparents, our parents. A lot of them are still alive. I mean, my father-in-law is 95. So we have extended families. So we buy for everybody. And that's why we're responsible for buying 85% of things that are bought in this country. The older generation has recovered from the recession a lot better. And again, I'm blowing through these. This just shows you that people over 45 have gotten back to what they lost in the recession, and the younger generations have not yet. Or this was in 2011. Maybe they're back up, maybe, but it was a pretty severe thing. This one is wonderful for us because it shows that this is how much people spend per household on the average by age cohort, and look who spends the most. 55 to 64. This was in 2008. And the people who are in the highest 20% of income spend on average 37.18. And there are a huge number of people in the baby boom generation that are in that cohort. So important. I think somebody said yesterday, well, God, you just see all of this in the elevators here. And you do. We're going to talk about some of the products that are suggested from this travel kind of expenditure number. Generation Z, those are the grandkids. And this is like a moving target. It changes every day, I think. When I first did this slide, these people were born between 1994 and 2004, but a generation goes out 20 years, so it's still forming. So that's going to change. Those years are going to change. Right now they're between 9 and 19, but again, that's going to change. It's going to go down and up. There are 23 million now, but their numbers are expected to exceed the boomers in numbers. So there's a whole lot of these kids. And these kids are realistic and cautious, security-minded, and they know more about technology than most people in this room, certainly more than I do. What is very chilling is that 43% of them feel that school violence is going to have a huge impact on how they live, how they feel. And so, Normalynn, you want to?
So, I am happy to say not only am I a boomer, but I am a grandparent, a proud grandparent. And there are some people in this audience who know me well who might question who's more mature, my grandchildren or me. We can have a discussion, put your dukes up after this session, but I want to say that 3 of the 4 grandchildren that I have are not in that 9 and up cohort. The 9-year-old definitely is cautious, is inner, very thoughtful, pensive, and a little bit of a crybaby, but she'll get out of it. The other 3 are damn the torpedoes, let's go for broke, let's have fun, etc. So characteristically, things are changing. Now, by the time they reach 9 years old, we don't know how they're going to feel about it, depending on how much CNN their parents make them watch. My grandkids believe I have all the answers. And unlike my grandmother, I don't remember either of my grandfathers, but my grandmothers, I'm participant in my grandchildren's life. They see me at soccer games. I'm going to actually go on a charity walk with a younger one. Now, how many of you in the audience who are boomers, if you're 25 and you have grandchildren, I really don't need to hear your personal problems. But for those of you who are boomers, how many of you are grandparents? Okay, and you know the joy of that. How many of you have more than 2 grandchildren? Wow, my family's fertile. So, do you feel, those of you who have grandchildren, do you get to spend enough time with them? You don't have to answer that audibly. And the other question is, do you spend more time with your grandchildren than your grandparents spent with you? Can we hear? Okay, so across the board, you're seeing your grandkids and doing more different things with them. I mean, basically, I went to grandmother's to watch wrestling and roller derby, those of you who remember that.
I'm guessing there aren't many people who did that with their grandparents.
Well, and yes, and my grandmother took me to a Bridget Bardot movie, and I didn't see her for 2 years after that.
Weird.
This is something you'll answer quietly, but when we were talking about the intersection of economics and inspiration and so on, we want to get inspired by you guys because you are in the, not trying to demean what you do, but you're in the trenches. You're doing this every day. So what is your favorite thing to do with your own grandchildren? And when you see yourself becoming grandparents, what do you think you're going to really want to do with your grandkids? Beyond the obvious, which is where we are, etc. What other sorts of things do you think you might? All of this will become extremely relevant in a bit. Okay, so there were over 500 people who actually participated. This was an online survey. We didn't have 500 people in my house or Jill's house. Personally, that would be awful. But anyway, they were given to us by, we bought a very expensive list of boomer grandparents so that these people would be pre-qualified to participate in the survey. Something that was very interesting is that 50% of all these grandparents see their grandchildren once a week. And as I said, outside of the debacle of Bridget Bardot and God Created Woman, I saw my grandmother maybe 3 or 4 times a year. I did not see her. And she lived in the same city that I lived in, but she didn't drive, so that was part of it. Also, kids have a lot of activities. It could be argued that our grandchildren, and I would argue this, are overscheduled and overcommitted. They're going to soccer and then to swimming, and then they've got music lessons, and some of the less lucky ones are going to therapists, and who knows what all else, things that we don't want children to be doing because that's not what children do. But in any case, they got a lot going on. So there's an awful lot of opportunity for grandparents to participate in the fun stuff. 71% of the grandparents, like myself, God, I hate it when I'm in part of the majority. I like to be in that, the outliers club, attend these activities with their grandkids because they're joyous, because we don't feel that much different. Those of you who are over 40, do you feel any different than you did at 30? Inside. Okay, when I walk up the stairs, I feel a little different,
Right.
I have to say. But in terms of when I see them playing soccer, in my head, I know intellectually I can't play soccer. I can't be running up and down, but I feel like I could. I emotionally feel relating to that. So the most popular things to do are things that are a little bit more relaxing: restaurant shopping, of course, going to movies. But I have enjoyed especially with my granddaughters, and now my grandsons want to do this, cooking classes, art classes, things where we learn something together. That is a real experience, especially the person, when we went and made pasta together, I made the biggest mess. The 6-year-old and the 9-year-old, everything was tidy, and I had flour in my hair. It was a mess. So, is this you?
Yeah. So I do all the boring stuff here on this presentation. So
And I make all the interesting stuff boring. So there you go.
And she's wearing the ears. So this is the methodology. There were 523 people we talked to. They were baby boomer grandparents, and they had to have seen their grandchild at least once a year. Otherwise, why were we talking to them? Right. So we asked them about their income, and we found out that at least almost half of them are working. They have a salary. That was an extremely important finding. We divided them into 3 groups. So we had the overall population of 500 people, and then we looked at higher income people, and those we said were people who were earning over 100,000, and then higher education, and those were people who had a bachelor's or more. So, do you babysit your kids? Now, that used to be, it was kind of like I have to babysit the kids, but this is something that grandparents are enjoying doing. So, the overall population, 67%, but in the coveted populations, the higher income and the higher education, they do it even more. So, these are people we are people, and Normalynn is a person, enjoying this
person.
enjoying the babysitting, because it's really not babysitting, it's getting to spend time with the people that they love. What do they do? And again, there's a lot of information on here, but these are some of the activities that they have with their schools, with some of their sporting, with their nonprofits that support, like the AYSO, and they do art and dance and soccer. So these are things that the grandchildren do. Remember that 71% of the grandparents go with their grandkids to do these things. That's what I just said. Hello. Right. This is really hard to read, and I keep saying that, so I broke a lot of the rules on these slides, but they're going to be available to you online. This may be the most important one for all of us. So what do they do with their grandkids? And if we get down to go to museums and exhibitions, a quarter of them do that. Visit a fun center, a quarter. Go to amusement parks, 23%. Theme park, 25%. So remember the numbers that we talked about at the beginning and how many there are, how many there are going to be. You take these percentages and apply them, you can find out how many people actually do these things. Estimated, we call that estimated. And we can look at, people who have higher incomes and higher education and how many of those people. So this is very good news for us. It's very good news for us, people in this room. And we can start designing our experiences for baby boomer grandparents and their grandkids. Now, special occasions. That was something that we thought would be a real fun market to design for and to create for. So what do? They go out to a restaurant, they go shopping, going on a special trip. Now, I think that's something that we should all pay a lot of attention to because, again, we're here. We're at a Disney place, and you absolutely see it every minute you walk around. You see the extended family. And especially here with the higher income is much higher than the general population, and the higher education is a little bit higher than the general population. So these are just things that help us when we're thinking of what are the new products that we can talk to our clients about or ourselves about in terms of what we're creating. This is how much they spend on retail. It's not a big deal. This is how we communicate or how they communicate. And look at how many of them have cell phones. And, it's, if we think that they're old school, maybe a little bit because, 55% of them have a home phone, but most of them communicate with their cell phones. They're on Facebook, they Skype. Normalynn's.
But we have my granddaughter has a device. I want to say it's an iPod, but I'm not positive, where she can text me, but she can't call me because she's only 9. And they figured it would be an unending conversation, which I think is really kind of interesting. When she gets older, she'll get an iPhone, but she has every other kind of communication device. I'm curious, for everybody in the audience, how many people of you have surrendered having a landline and are purely cellular at this point? Yeah. Well, there you have it. And we're not the younger generation. The younger generation is more likely to be 100% digital.
Right, or they never ring, right? Right. Right. Well,
Absolutely. Actually, I have a landline, but I never use it, so I don't even think I have one.
right.
And it usually is the number you put down on if your bill is delinquent. What number can we call you to tell you to get your check in? That's the number you put down.
Right. So this is okay. So this is one that we can delve into a whole lot deeper. We have a lot of information on how people vacation and the resorts they go to. So the question was, do you vacation with your grandchildren? 63% said yes. Higher education, 66%, but higher income, 72%. These people go on vacations with their grandkids. This one is amazing. What was the average size, their average party size? Now, we know this. We kind of know it because we're starting to design for these party sizes. 6 plus, 50%. Half of these people who are going on vacation with their grandkids are obviously going with their parents and maybe others. So 24%, there's an average party size of 5. So we've got 75% over 5 people they travel with when they go on their vacations. And again, we're in the perfect place to see this. Disney Orlando is the number 1 place in the country for family reunions. And it wasn't planned that way, or we've been told that by some people at Disney. It happened that way. And then they started creating products like communication systems and software to keep everybody together and in communication because they saw that this was happening. And you see it here too. Now, after we did this, we took all of the information and we put our research group back together and we kind of noodled, well, what are some of the products and services? But I know that people in this audience have been thinking about this because Kelly, where's Kelly? Yeah, Kelly. Yes. So we talked about this a year and a half ago, right? And Cliff, where's Cliff? Yeah, Cliff. And David, you and I have talked about it. These are things I've been talking to my clients about for a long time.
So I'll
And
take it from here.
yeah, so Normalynn wants me to shut up.
So you remember the song that was playing when you walked in the door, Forever Young. Not only do you have to build places that appeal to boomers and their grandkids, or should you add attractions that draw them into your places, but they have to be different than the generations that go prior. Our generation, the boomer generation, is more adventuresome, more experimental, maybe not more experimental than we were in the 60s, but some of you might not even remember the 60s, so we won't even talk about that. Now, that was supposed to get a laugh. Come on, you guys. Doesn't anybody remember Timothy Leary except me? Okay. And it makes talking to us a bit challenging because in the traditional ways, we sort of do the safe, and safe is important, by the way. Safety is numero uno when you have your grandkids in tow. You want them to be safe. But we also want to be going for it. So you have got to have that balance of things that make our adrenaline flow as well as things that make us look safe. And the products that we discussed, which again, many of you are already working on, as Jill pointed out, are the multi-generational resorts, which means that in a single network of rooms, all 6 family members can be accommodated, but aren't necessarily in one big room, that they also have privacy doors, etc. So at the end of the evening, mommy and daddy can be alone, and grandma and grandpa can be alone. It's really important. Another new development is Airstream trailer resorts, and there's a brilliant example of one in Santa Barbara called De La Vina. Go online and take a look at it. But people are coming in Airstream trailers and parking in this very fabulous, obviously it's Santa Barbara, so money was spent to do this right. It's kitschy and it's a campy camp. That's a little weird. Okay, and then we've been talking to people who are developing day camps for grandparents and grandkids to go together, to learn things, to explore new places, etc., together, as opposed to shipping the kids off for day camp to paint or make one of those bracelets that as soon as it gets wet, it gets discolored, etc. One of the things that we have been finding out about theme parks is, in addition to the rides and all the other attractions that are there, one of the reasons that Tivoli is timeless and why other parks are timeless is the fact that there are places to gather, to sit and rest and communicate with each other. It's not just a mad dash to let's make all the rides that we can. And this was actually made very evident to me my last trip to Disneyland with my 2 grandsons and my son and his wife. We were going to go to the Autobahn, and it was 5 o'clock. We were going to stay for the fireworks. And the 8-year-old said, the only car I want to see is my Glamma. By the way, they call me Glamma. I have no idea why. But the only car I want to see is my Glamma's car, and I want it to take me home. I'm done. Which, I don't know about you, but when I was going to theme parks, they couldn't get me out of the theme park.
And I just want to add, some of the things that we're saying right here, they may seem obvious, and people say to me all the time, oh, Jill, you just say the obvious. But it's not happening. It's not happening enough. So these are opportunities, and that is what we were supposed to, what we are talking about today, are opportunities. So if you look at any theme park in the US now, it doesn't look like Tivoli. It just doesn't. And when you go to Tivoli, you see families and families and families. So you make it for them and they come, or it could be that the culture made the theme park, but whatever it is, we're becoming much more intergenerational, and we need to accommodate that.
Another thought is city civic and private welcome centers where you can learn about where you live, where you're going to, and that's also a day trip kind of event. One of the things that we've sort of talked about, and Tivoli is the example of that, is there is some discussion, and this is something that you guys can discuss later, that there's not enough softscape in the theme park today. It does feel, like it's a dark ride, it's an iron ride, and it needs to feel like a park. And Disneyland does that so well. There are places in Disneyland where you feel completely transported to someplace else, not just to a place where you're going to rides, attractions, and shopping in logo merchandise stores. And I see we're down to 10 minutes, so okay. Extended family resorts for special occasions like reunions. Jill mentioned that Orlando Disney is where people are having their reunions. Well, it's because there's a whole host of things to do around there. It's not just the park. There's restaurants. There's been the whole community of Buena Vista Lake, etc., is geared for families to have all kinds of different experiences over the course of a week. Excuse me for a moment. And we won't talk about adult residential living or adults cohabitating and sharing their Social Security checks. Just kidding. So these are real estate-based programs. What we'd like to tell you is that when we presented this initially at ULI, our first blush, it's kind of our first run through, we asked for some of the leaders to step up to the plate and allow us to beta test some of these ideas on their properties where they had vacant space that wasn't earning them any income. And we are proud to say, did you see the email this morning? No. Oh, okay. This morning we were approved by California Pizza Kitchen in Redondo Beach, who is going to host grandparent, grandkid pizza making classes on Saturday mornings before the restaurant opens in earnest. So that is already scheduled and guaranteed. And of course, CPK is going to make money doing this. It isn't free. It's going to be $10 a person. And 50% of that is profit to them. It could be profit to a park if that was there. The other thing we are doing at the same center, we've been granted a 3,000 square foot space across the way from Gymboree and next door to Kohl's, where we are doing a lost arts program. What are the lost arts? The lost arts are crocheting, embroidery, etc., knitting, so that grandparents and grandkids, quilting, we actually have a quilter that will probably be the first arty provider up, but we're also going to give creative writing classes. These are things that sometimes the grandparents didn't take the time to learn when they were in college or high school and will want to share storytelling with their grandchildren. So if any of you have vacant spots and you want to give us a beta site, come up and see us afterwards. Anyway, cupcake decorating classes, these are all, again, I took this with my granddaughters, and mine really looked like I had the heebie, I was detoxing or something because the cupcakes were pretty awful looking. Theirs were perfect. Cooking with Gigi, which is grandma, new chefs tasting, virtual reality, fishing, football. Again, if you're seeing a trend, it's something they can do together that not only that, they can leave and do together after the event. It's not just something there that's for the moment. It's something that'll stay with them forever. Excuse me. This was a wild idea that we had. Why should PTAs have all the fun? I don't know about you, but for those of you with grandchildren, how often do you get the call, well, your granddaughter is in a selling candy to raise money for the music program at school. Can you buy 5,000 pounds of chocolate? You getting that? Any of you getting that? Yes? Well, why don't we have our own fundraising thing? We're vital. We're still in the business world, as is evidenced by what you said. We're going to be talking to LAUSD about starting a pilot program for the GTA, the Grandparent Teacher Association, and having also not only fundraisers, but the grandparents sponsoring events that they want to, whether it's field trips or whatever. Other things you can do are things that actually require capital but can be value added to theme parks or even FECs or whatever. Gen Z is the most viable cohort right now. If there was a touring show with Hunger Games things, it would be a home run, we feel. Or the art of Cirque du Soleil, costumes that are no longer in use because the shows are not touring anymore. Shipping container pop-ups. And there is, we were shown a shipping container shopping area in downtown Las Vegas, but we're talking about actually turning it into an attraction with shopping as part of it, but also theater and painting and so on and so forth. And this may happen at the Port of Los Angeles. We're working with them to put a container park in their plaza level. And new LBE experiences like Orby, which Jill worked on with Sega. All of these things are things that can, again, take the nucleus of what your offering is right now and layer on it these other profit center events with their own built-in ROI.
So I think that now is the time that we wanted to talk to you.
Yeah, because we're thanking you.
Yeah, but we don't want this to be over. We want to hear ideas that you may have had as we were talking and things that you've been thinking about. And so, yes, Phil. Good.
Now it's not. Go on. So this is a really interesting cohort, and I think all of our minds start to spin with things we could do with this. But it also doesn't seem like this is really totally new. Grandparents have taken their families on trips and done things together for a long time. So my question is, based on the research, what percentage increase do you see kind of as a new trend? Is this increasing 5%, 10%?
Increasing what?
From 10 years ago? Or
increasing expenditure on...
What's different now than how this cohort behaved 10 years ago?
Well, they were younger 10 years ago, so they would have been a lot less grandparents. So
I wasn't a grandparent
so the cohort's
10 years
just
ago.
growing.
Well, that's what the first slide showed, is that we're going from 45% of baby boomers to 78% of baby boomers. So it's, the one thing is it's the sheer size. It's going from 45 million to 60 million, is that right? If I remember my numbers correctly. So it's just getting bigger and bigger. So that, that's kind of like, oh, okay. Well, we should pay attention to that.
And Phil, just as a backup to that, Jill, is that, I think 10 years ago, the size of the groups going out were smaller than the size we're looking at now. And I think that was part of the question, Phil. It's now 6 people going to someplace versus I think back then it was 3 or 4.
Well, that's true. But this is a very specific group. It's the baby boomer and their grandkids. That's the 6. So it's a large.
And Phil, I think it's the reality is people are living longer and they're living healthier into their older age. So their activities are increasing, and that's what we're noticing is the fact that they're doing more activity. They're looking for outdoor events. They're looking for things to do physically with their grandkids or with their families. So it's a marketplace because of baby boomers and there's such high numbers and they're living longer. It's a market we never took serious because people weren't living as healthy as long.
Well, and we just give short shift to old people, which don't ever call our generation old, or you're going to lose them. And don't talk to them about depends, and don't, and that is what there's a group at a big consumer company that has been working on this for 5 years. And that's what they've come up with. They've come up with depends that don't budge. I mean, can you believe it? Is that something you want to wear? It's amazing.
That's the best they could do.
That's the best they could do.
One of the things that this requires a different kind of way to look at it, which is don't look at things that will fix us. Look at things that will enhance our life. Yeah,
exactly.
Which is completely different. Completely different way to look at it.
you make a great case for the growth of this segment and the grandparents and grandkids, and it makes sense. Last summer, I heard a speaker, I think it was at IAPA in Singapore. It was one of the presidents or something of Hong Kong Disney, and he talked about the growth of the non-family audience. And I had never heard that term, non-family, certainly not from a Disney executive, that they're trying to think of ways to address the non-family guests. So, he's making the case that that's growing. And
it is.
So how does that balance out with your whole case?
Both of them are growing. It's absolutely true. There can be those two segments that are growing. So, families were very important, and to the boomers in the boomer times when that when families were forming, and now very high percent of our population are singles. So we have, and so these families, have moved on, and we saw the age wave of people. Some of them have gotten divorced. A lot of them have stayed together. So we have those two segments that are growing, and you probably have to think through how you would design differently for the two markets.
Well, we want to have a boom market for baby boomers. This should make you money, and lots of it. That's what we're about. The baby boom is not just about us. It's about putting money in the coffers. So thank you very much for your attention. And if you have any questions of us, we're going to be around for a while.
Thank you very much.
Okay.